This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
This podcast is brought to you by TeamTrade, a digital solution that helps you hire, optimize, and retain employees. Using psychometric assessments to identify more than 100 professional mindset traits, it gives instant reports you can use to build high-performing teams. Get 2 free profiles today, no commitment, no credit card required, at teamtrait.com. TeamTrait.com. Welcome to the Manage Smarter podcast with hosts C. Lee Smith and Audrey Strong. We're glad you're here for discussions on new ways to manage smarter, hire, develop, and retain talent, improve results, and propel team performance to new heights. This is the Manage Smarter podcast.
Lee, early tech adopters would say that the age of AI came roaring in. They knew about it, that it was happening in past years. But 2024, I really think, is the time when AI sort of came exploding into the mass media cultural knowledge and lexicon. Am I right about that?
Yeah, you're right about that. And the thing is, it's not just what people know about it, it's what they don't know. So they've been alerted to the fact that, okay, it's there, it's about to become ubiquitous. There's no getting away from it. You can't just wish it would go away. It's not going to go away. Quite the opposite. And so what that leads to then is, like, when you have all these fill in the blank type things, people will, fill in the blank with whatever they want. And there's a lot of fear about what will AI do to our society? Do we need more legislation on that? What does AI mean for my job? It's like, can AI be a better manager than a manager? Can AI be a better salesperson than a salesperson, a better copy editor, et cetera? And as a matter of fact, at SalesFuel not too long ago that showed a pretty significant number of people in the arts and entertainment industry that are fearful that AI is going to replace their jobs. And so I'd like to hear more from our guest today about, let's either debunk that or perhaps dive into it a little bit and talk about what we can do about it. And, really focusing on our humanity as human beings, basically, so that we can use AI as a teammate rather than as something we need to be afraid of.
We're very lucky to have this guest today because he can talk about the ethics and philosophical versions of what's coming, and then down to the granular, like what's going to happen for our audience of managers, what's going to happen possibly to their jobs. So welcome to Manage Smarter, everyone. I'm super excited about this guest. My name is Audrey Strong. I'm the Senior Vice President of Communications here at SalesFuel.
And I'm C. Lee Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of SalesFuel, and I have not yet been replaced by AI.
Well, okay. Faisal Hoque is recognized one of the world's top management thinkers and technologists, and is an award-winning entrepreneur, innovator, and a #1 Wall Street Journal bestselling author with close to 30 years of cross-industry success, the founder of Shadoka, Next Chapter, and other companies. Here's the book that's coming out in 2025, everyone. It's called Transcend, Unlocking Humanity in the Age of AI. First quarter 2025, distributed by Simon & Schuster, a major publisher. We're so lucky to have him. He's a founder and CEO of multiple companies, 3-time winner of Deloitte Technology Fast 50 and Fast 500 awards, a 3-time Wall Street Journal bestselling author for his books. I mean, I could go on and on, but Faisal, I'd just like to get down to the basic question of your book and welcome you to the show, where you say, how can we protect what's most precious about humanity and the human experience with what you see coming? You say we're not ready in the book.
Yeah, look, I'm going to start with the philosophical tenet of it by saying that all depends on us, right? Because it in so many ways, in the sense that what we do as an individual to prepare for this, what we do as a society to protect us and put the right legislation and law around it, it depends on how we kind of focus on the greatest impact that could have on the humanity versus the worst impact it could happen on the humanity, right? So it all depends on us at the end of the day. So as we talk in the next few minutes, we can dive into each of these tenets.
Yeah.
So what kind of laws do you advocate need to happen to protect humanity?
Look, I mean, we can start with some basic things. Like, for example, you can talk about, the ownership of your digital asset, right? So all of a sudden, I mean, I'm a creative person aside from being an entrepreneur who builds and sells software. I've got tons of books out there. All of a sudden, if you see people, AI, using AI and replicating those thoughts and ideas, that's a problem, right? Because it's going to infringe upon my creativity, right? So one way to protect that is that if you can start putting quote unquote tag on your IP, such as blockchain, and then start tracking it and prevent AI to replicate that or take a derivative work out of that, is a combination of technology and legislative law that will do that. If you break that law, you're going to have to pay for it. Another example is that, I mean, we have a lot of controversy around facial recognition as an example, because facial recognition could infringe upon your privacy. So do we let AI start tracking us and tagging us everywhere we go and use those data against us? Of course, we don't want that, right? So there got to be privacy law against those kind of things. So, and it goes on and on. I mean, deep fake, another element of
Yes.
it. Huge aspect of, especially as we're in the election season, and it's a big topic about deep fake is a big topic about nowadays, because of the fact that how it can influence and change people's opinion, but it can get even deeper. You've heard those stories where deep fake has been used for blackmailing people, right?
Mhm.
So there's no lack
Let's
of these things.
let's bring that around to our audience then. What about employee data?
Yeah, same. I mean, because I mean, the reality is, we talk about AI as if we haven't used AI. We're just starting to use AI. That's not the case. There's a various levels of AI that has been
Mhm.
kind of uh, reaching different level of maturity, right? So we are now at a sort of generative AI level. Soon it's going to be smart level, and then initially there was weak AI in the sense that, for example, when you type and auto text shows up, it's a form of AI, right?
Mhm.
Or when you're using your navigation system, it's a form of AI. So in terms of employee data, obviously the employee data can be used by the employer, but look at how much data we have even in a professional network such as on LinkedIn, right? So if you siphon that data, I mean, within days, you can create a database of thousands of people with their, not just their contact information, but their behavioral pattern, because what they post and what they talk about, et cetera, et cetera. So you're creating a set of bias that can be used against them for potential employment, as an example, or
Wow.
thinking whether you should hire that person because they made some particular political opinion, or they made a particular statement, and you're creating these biases. And AI will only enhance those biases, because AI is nothing but collection of that data, biased data, and then siphoning or codifying that data to give you whatever answer you're looking for, right? So, this bias element of data set is very
But
problematic.
we already have that, though. It's like we have the ability then to do a 7-year scan on someone's social media and to be able then to tag that for bullying or sexism or sexual harassment and things like that, or criminal acts, that sort of thing. So we have that already. And of course, the bias that's built in is like those things I just mentioned are bad, right? So I think I look at it as sort of like, well, AI then becomes a tool, and the tool in the hands of the right person can be a great thing, and a tool in the hand of a wrong person, a bad person, can be a really bad thing. I mean, whether it be like a photocopier or a gun or whatever, it's like that can be. It's and maybe that's where the danger comes in, because like we have laws protecting us against guns, against bad people doing bad things and everything like that. But AI doing bad things, it's wild, wild west, it feels like.
Yeah, and so there's two aspect of it. That's, first of all, when you talk about law, I mean, I part of my book, I went out there and talked to some legislative representative, meaning the senators, and I talked to them about their thoughts on how they should create next generation legislation so that you can protect citizens from all kind of havocs, the kind of things we're talking about, right? The problem is that legislation is so busy, the legislative body is so busy with today's problem, and it's quite complex, both from a technological point of view as well as social impact point of view, right? So it requires some dedicated thought process, and we haven't even begun to think about what are these implications. So that's one challenge. The other challenge is that unlike the things that we talked about, the speed and exponential growth of the technology and ability to do the analytics and siphon through people's background and whatever is so much more. It just creates a much bigger issue than you would have with anything else out there. And not to mention that it's super accessible, right? A 12-year-old can go and start using ChatGPT. 12-year-old can go and buy a gun. Hopefully they can't, and do stuff, right? So the accessibility of the technology and the speed of the technology and the utilization of the technology makes everything so much more complex than anything we have seen in the past.
So as a manager, let's say ChatGPT largely automates a lot of the busy work and things that I'm doing. Is the humanity preservation part of this that I'm still a person managing people, or I also need to human verify what's going on? Is that part of what you say is the new future of what a management job looks like?
Yes. I mean, look, one of the things we try to do in the book, since you introduced me with the book, I mean, we actually developed two sets of framework, we call open and care. And the idea of the open and care is that you have to be open to explore possibility with this new set of technology. And there's a certain steps and methods that you can follow to explore where can be the best utilization of technology. The care element of it is that governance piece of it, right? Meaning, how do you care about the humanity so that you can apply the right governance, right law, and right empathy so that you cannot, you don't destroy yourself, your community, and society as a whole. So, for example, if you are a manager and you're evaluating somebody's performance and you're just feeding that, some evaluation in a particular system that is AI driven, and you're asking the AI based on the feedback and and the data available with the comparative situation, tell me what should be the outcome. And let's say the Chat GPT now tells you, or not Chat GPT, any generative AI now tells you, any generative model tells you, okay, here's the answer. Audrey, we recommend Susie should get a 2% increase because of XYZ. Now, you as a manager take that as a gospel and don't take the full context, like what was the situation,
Right. Discretion.
what was the context, discretion, and just gave that. Then as a manager, you're not really doing your job, right? And as a human being, you're not being fair to the person who's working for you or with you, right? So that's where the empathy and the basic humanity comes in play, to be very conscious how you're using this technology to judge, to encourage, influence, and provide leadership to the people that are surrounding you.
It's sort of like when I'm driving my semi-autonomous car. It's like, if I let the car do whatever the car wants to do, the bottom line is I'm still responsible for whatever the car does. I'm still the person behind the wheel, even though, I can't just wash my hands and kind of say, well, the car decided to do that or whatever. That's not my fault. I think the analogy here is that to a leader or to a manager, if we're using AI and everything like that, we still are responsible for driving that car. And we're responsible for the output and the impact, that is caused by our use of it. Am I on the right track?
Absolutely. I mean, since you brought up car, I mean, look, I mean, when we are using lane correction as an example, don't have to go to full autonomous vehicle, but let's say lane correction, which most cars now have, right? So the idea of the lane correction is that it provides you a safety net so that you don't veer off, right? And there is artificial intelligence, machine learning mechanism built into those kind of software and the hardware that keeps your car on the lane. Now let's say you're seeing a car coming to hit you, by your reflex, and as a defensive driver, you would veer off. Now, if you don't want to veer off because the lane correction telling you that you should not veer off, well, that's upon you, right? So you're going to get into an accident. It's the same. You can use that analogy repeatedly. So, for example, take healthcare as an example, right? Which I'm very interested in for personal reasons. I mean, if you have a diagnostic system tells you this particular patient, based on our historical data, is suffering from this. But that historical data may be biased in the sense that it may not have all types of demographics fit into it. It may have only one or two types of demographics. So the patient that you're looking at may not fit into that criteria. So you're going to end up giving a wrong diagnostic. And it has happened, by the way, early stage of Watson, it makes serious mistakes on a couple of diagnostical test cases because it didn't have the right set of data. So many ways, like we used to say old days, garbage in, garbage out. That's still true for AI because it's not a live thing. It doesn't have cognition. Its cognition is derivative or generative based on set of data, right? So whatever data we're feeding it, that's what you're going to get the outcome on, right? So, like for example, if you just for fun's sake, you go to ChatGPT and ask, which we did in the process of writing the book. We said, okay, what does humanity means? And give me like 10 quotes from Aristotle versus
I can't wait to hear this.
Yeah, this is gonna be
fun. Versus somebody else, right? And you get the quote. It sounds great, but then you say, okay, cite me the source where you got it, and half of them are wrong because it sounds right. It sounds like it should be Aristotle, but it's not, right? So this will get better as we feed more and more data, but it will never be perfect in the nearest future. So that's the bad part, right? So now let's talk about, you're talking about people and employment and that sort of a thing. Mundane work, which you asked me, Audrey, a few minutes ago, that what happens to the mundane, should we automate the mundane work? And Lee, you talked about autonomous vehicles. So imagine this scenario, which is coming, whereby repeated work, let's say fast food chain as an example, which already lots of places they're experimenting. It's all run by robots, whereby it's same recipe, same thing, it's repeated process, and you're cranking out, and it's very system driven because you can predict the demand of a certain time of the day, and you're so you can completely automate, right? And it's run by robots.
It's so like the assembly line kind of stuff, right? If it's an assembly line kind of thing, we've already been going that direction anyway with robots, right. So it's just a continuation of the same thing. So but except now it's white collar work. It's not just blue collar work. So that's where it gets crazy.
So hold that thought. So you have that, huge population of the globe does that kind of work, right? And now let's take autonomous car as an example. So all of a sudden, you have all autonomous cars, and you no longer have taxi drivers. So here's the economic question, right? So we have become super efficient because now we don't have to do this mundane driving. We don't have to do mundane fast food creation. What happens to the people who are actually employed to those places, right? So, and if you really do look at it, it's almost like, anywhere, depending on the location, global location, it could be anywhere from 15 to 40% of population does those kind of work, right? So what happens to those people? So they're unemployed. So what do? They can reskill in a heartbeat to do something else. So this is what we're going to be grappling with within next 5 years time frame as we keep pushing this thing. So the question is, with the hopes of great technology comes a lot of caution and a lot of restraint, because as much as we have to be devoted to progress and new technology and betterment of humankind, we also have to be detached from going too far ahead when we are not prepared to deal with these kind of consequences. Right, so that's really the point. And if you want to prevent ourselves from that kind of destructive situation, then we have to think through from a ethical point of view, legal point of view, economic point of view, the socio geopolitical impact point of view, et cetera, et cetera.
We're running out of time.
Sure, Audrey, I thought for sure he was going to say, with great power comes great responsibility.
Well, yeah, that's. I have a question, and then we're almost out of time. I'm going to give Lee the last question. But Faisal, one of the things I'd heard that basically that this Chat GPT had gobbled up all the great books of the world and has not paid anybody a dime for consuming all the intellectual property the world has to offer. And that a lot of people were going to litigate and say, no, you have to turn it off because I'm not until you pay me. But the genie's too far out of the bottle, right? That's not going to work.
No, that's not. No, and look, I mean, this stuff like that has been happening for a long time. Like, you hear artists complaining that their music is being played on various platforms and they're not getting royalty, right? You talk about books, authors, like, I've got tons of books out there and people use it. I mean, forget about Chat GPT, ripping you off. I mean, I find out my writing showing up in all kind of places and I don't even get the credit, right? Yeah. So that's par for the course, right? So you have to figure out a different model to survive than just complaining that your intellectual property is being stolen, right? So that's really, there's no easy answer for
those
that.
lawsuits are going to go on forever.
Oh, yeah.
Let me give you a website and then
okay, go ahead.
It's FaisalHoque.com. I'm going to spell it, everybody. It's FAISALHOQUE.com, everybody. And the name of the book is called Transcend, Unlocking Humanity in the Age of AI. Lee, I'll give you the last question.
All right, so a comment and a question. So on the thing that was just said, it's sort of like rock stars or musicians or whatever who used to make all their money off of royalties from record sales, and now that's kind of dried up. So now they make all their money touring. So it's like, okay, they're still using their intellectual property, still getting paid for that. They're just getting paid in a different way. Yeah, because it used to be cheap to buy tickets to a concert. Not anymore.
Right. Yeah.
But so my question is, like you alluded to another framework that you have called Open, which is to help people unlock the power of AI to do more, better, great things and like that. I'd like to hear more about that.
Sure. So we basically step out. How do you look at the possibilities of technology based on your purpose, your role, your ambition, and the outcome that you're looking for? And it's on an individual level, organizational level, as well as a government level. So as an individual, if you look at it as an individual, let's say it's a sales guy and he's trying to sell, right? One way to use AI is that if you wanted to do research, say in a particular industry, like I was talking to somebody earlier today, they wanted to, have a particular offering to a, manufacturing organization in a smaller, who are in SMB space. So if I wanted to prepare for that, the AI is a great tool because I could go to any of these models and say, okay, give me all the SMB companies that are located in East Coast corridor and tell me what their revenues are and who their management teams are. Where can I find that information if you don't know it? And how you're engineering this prompt will give you a pretty good set of data that you can take and go jumpstart your research process so that you can target that market. Now, before, you can imagine how much time we spend to get those data. You have to buy DNV's data set. You have to scout through your LinkedIn. You got to do this. You got to do that. This step just became very fast, right? So within a couple of hours, I can get a pretty good sense that there may be 50 companies that could be in the target market that I want to go after. And now I can start crafting what value proposition I want to give to this particular set of companies. And even then, you can use these tools to craft your pitch. But you are driving it, you're using it as a tool, just like your autonomous, car example. You're going to a destination, but you're using car versus, let's say, horse buggy or walking. So it's a faster process to get there versus a prolonged process to get there.
So interesting. Well, Faisal, good luck with the book. Have a great
Thank you.
2025. This is fascinating. And I'd love to have you back on the show, maybe at the end of next year. We'll see
Anytime.
if you were right, where
Anytime.
we are in your 3, 5, and 10-year timeline prediction. And everybody get the book. It's a fascinating read.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information at salesfuel.com.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.